The Lez River is located in the south of France in the Hérault department. Its spring is close to the Pic Saint-Loup and the municipality of Saint-Clément-de-Rivière. It crosses the city of Montpellier, which has about 280,000 inhabitants, and reaches the Palavision Lakes and then the Mediterranean Sea. The size of the watershed is 746 square kilometers, and the Lez is a small coastal river with a length of 29 kilometers. The Lez Basin is marked by a fast urbanization of the basin due to the attractivity of the region, as can be seen from these aerial pictures. This urbanization has resulted in the artificialization of 2,920 hectares from 1990 to 2012. The Lez Basin is characterized by a typical Mediterranean weather marked by repeated drought and heavy rainfall in very short time scale called seasonal events. For example, in 2014, 300 millimeters of rain fell on the city of Montpellier with a peak of 91 millimeters in 1 hour. The history of the area is marked by flash floods of the Lez River and on its tributaries in 1907, 1933, 1976, 2003, and more recently in 2014. Large investments have been carried out in recent years to protect from river overflow. Urban runoff remains, however, a major source of problem in the Lez watershed. The intensity and the volume of rain cannot be evacuated, especially due to the increased soil sealing due to urbanization and the limited capacity of urban drainage systems. Certain neighborhoods are particularly exposed to this runoff risk. In the recent events of 2014, CCR damage data indicate that 78% of the damage were due to urban runoff, while 22% were due to river overflow. Considering the type of flood risk that we are facing in the Lez Basin, we have decided to evaluate 3 different types of nature-based solutions. The first one is the active management of the karst system. The second one is the conservation of agricultural and natural land through different urban planning scenarios. And the third one is the development of green infrastructure. This evaluation is carried out in collaboration between the French Geological Survey, the BRGM, and the Caisse Centrale de Réassurance, the CCR. We are now going to present you the 3 different types of nature-based solutions and the way we are assessing them. The Lez Spring is the outlet of a large karst aquifer. The rain filters through the crack of a large karstic watershed and is stored underground. Drinking water is directly pumped in the aquifer at a rate of more than 30 cubic meters per year, providing high-quality drinking water for a permanent population of 340,000 inhabitants. The decrease of the water table, due to the pumping during the summer season, increases the retention capacity of the karst during flood events. This may play as a buffer against flood, especially during the first events that usually occur at the beginning of the autumn. The NAIAD project assesses the impact of the active management of the karst, that is to say, a modification of the pumping strategy within the karst as a natural solution to control flood risk. We first evaluate urban planning scenarios as they have a strong impact on the preservation of agricultural and natural area, which in turn influences flooding risk. In the NAIAD project, 3 scenarios of urbanization are studied for the 2040 time horizon. A laissez-faire scenario in which the population growth remains high, 1.4% for the city of Montpellier, and new urbanization mainly relying on individual housing that leads to the artificialization of more than 3,800 hectares. A second scenario is calibrated on present policies with a limitation of population growth, 1% of the population growth in Montpellier, and efforts of densification that lead to the artificialization of 1,600 hectares. And finally, a virtuous scenario with a limitation of population growth and an objective of no additional artificialization. We then consider the deployment of green infrastructure. These may increase water retention and reduce runoff risk within urban areas. We evaluate different types of strategies of deployment of this green infrastructure. The deproofing of existing impervious area to restore water infiltration, the transformation of car parkings with permeable pavements, the introduction of biosways along roads, either narrow with only grassland or larger with road size reduction and the plantation of tree, the implementation of green roofs on buildings with flat roofs, the development of rain gardens in gardens with individual houses, and finally, the replacement of 25% of car parking space by multifunctional vegetated retention basins. Our methodology starts with the identification of NBS scenarios we have mentioned before in the course. This is done through a participatory process involving all the main stakeholders: municipalities, state and region, private developers, river basin authorities, and the insurance sector. We then simulate the deployment of our NBS scenarios through the identification of potential areas for green infrastructure by photo interpretation and the development of an urban planning model that predicts the artificialization of the city according to our urban planning scenarios. We therefore obtain land use scenarios of location of green infrastructure that we combine with climate scenarios. We then develop biophysical models to predict the impact of our NBS scenarios on overflow hazard and runoff hazard. This evaluation gives us the opportunity to assess the damages avoided thanks to NBS, which is one element of the economic assessment. This is done through the use of damage curves and insurance data provided by the CCR. The economic assessment is completed with a cost assessment associated with the different scenarios and a co-benefits assessment. The co-benefits assessment evaluates the other benefits associated with NBS, such as air quality improvement, carbon sequestration, reduction of heat islands, and conservation of biodiversity. The different indicators provided by these various assessments are then integrated through a cost-benefit analysis for the monetary indicators and a multi-criteria decision analysis. Thanks to these different assessments, we determine whether NBS scenarios can be beneficial for the society and which one is the best option.